Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, here in New York City. Day 3 now of 12th Cloud Expo New York. Our next general session, let's also say good morning, good afternoon, good evening, if you're watching this general session via the World Wide Web. Next session time, next generation IT, obviously a meta theme of every Cloud Expo, and I believe this is the first and only presentation to have block capitals. So you have to ask why Brian Jawalka, Manager of Architecture and Strategy of Enterprise Cloud Solutions, is using block capitals today. Give it up for Brian.
Thank you. Thank you, good morning. So I have a really innovative marketing department. We use big fonts. But no, I know I'm the only thing standing between you and lunch here at the conference, so I'll do my best not to disappoint. But no, my name is Brian Jawalka. I've been at Rackspace since 2004, so I have the pleasure of going through many stages of transformation, both at Rackspace and with our customers. So hopefully today I'll talk about really some of that transformation that we've all been through together and how we're helping organizations transform to really a cloud strategy. And that first slide, I really should have put must have hybrid cloud, because I think that hybrid cloud is really the future and vision for us, not just cloud computing. It's kind of a running joke at conferences that many organizations can just get projects approved just by putting cloud in the title. And so I'm sure many of you have been through that before, but today I really want to talk about disruption and how these technologies and how the capabilities that we have and what the demands are from our consumers, from our end users, from our development teams, right? Lisa talked about development teams yesterday in her keynote, and how that is really pushing us as IT organizations to really do new things and think about technology in ways we may have never considered. And so this disruption is really what's turning us on end. Now, one of the things that comes to mind immediately is, like, if you think about the App Store, the Apple App Store, right? How many of us, clearly probably everybody has an iPhone or an Android device. And this availability of applications, of technology, of new things, of new capabilities right at our fingertips is really what's pushing us to deliver things very differently as an IT organization. Many executives that I've been and talked to, they have this perception that they can just go find the application that does what they want, click buy for 99 cents, install it on their phone, and voila, they now have a new enterprise reporting system. Right? I mean, there are a few laughs in the audience, so I think there are things that we relate to, right? We have this perception, really, that it is instant, and I can go in and grab an application. I'm not necessarily thinking about all the repercussions of my enterprise IT organization. I'm not thinking about, well, where am I going to get that data from? And is my data really secure? And who do I have to give access to? Right? I'm just thinking about this availability that's at my fingertips, and that's really what's expected of us as IT professionals. When you think about, these are applications that I think about and I use, and I know that my team uses, and that at Rackspace we have alternatives inside the organization. And so when you start to get comfortable using an application like Evernote or Dropbox, and you come to work and there's no real alternative, right? Think about how easy it is for me to share pictures or share documents with my wife via Dropbox. It's simple. I can just drop it in there and it's easy. At the office, maybe I have to use a legacy file server. Maybe I have to use a SharePoint site. I use a Mac. SharePoint's terrible for me. So it just makes my life more difficult and more challenging. And so these sort of consumer applications are really having a big impact on us as enterprise IT organizations, right? Because I have to come up with an alternative to Evernote. What is the alternative? How do I make sure that I'm not putting all of my company's sensitive data on a platform that really isn't good for me? Maybe it is, maybe it isn't, right? You have to weigh all the pros and cons of these as your organization to figure out if it's the right fit. But one of the big challenges is that we live in this bring your own device sort of world. They just kind of show up. People show up with laptops. They show up with iPhones. And they expect the same level of access, the same level of support, the same capabilities. And that's not always possible. Because how do I know that they're at least running the latest software? How do I know they have a password on things? What am I going to do to support this? And this level of disruption is what I think is making IT even more challenging, because we have users that really have these specific demands. I don't want to give up my iPhone. The way iPhones got into Rackspace was because people just showed up with them and said, make it work. That's the way Android made it into Rackspace. At first, we were all BlackBerries, but nobody wanted to use a BlackBerry anymore because I want my music, right? I want my apps. I want my capabilities, right? That's how my Mac came into Rackspace. I said, I like it better. It works better. Doesn't blue screen, right? These sort of capabilities were just brought upon us by the consumers because the consumer technology was fun and innovative and really making my life easier. And so we have these users demanding access to control. It's really I picked this graphic because users really feel empowered, right? They have these devices, they have the capabilities, they've done it before, they've done it themselves. So they say, well, why can't you do it for me, IT? Why does it take me 6 months to get a new project? Why can't I have this application? How are you going to scale this for me instantly? How do I connect this platform together? So this level of demand and control and access that they're looking for is pushing us in whole new ways. And that's why we have to be very flexible on the technology we're consuming, the infrastructure we're consuming, so that we're able to be the people that say yes, as opposed to the people that say no and try and throw up roadblocks that they're going to try and get around anyway. Right? How do we support their initiatives as opposed to just being the no people? And so this consumerization of technology has pushed us for this really instant gratification, right? Instant compute, instant storage, instant provisioning. I need it now. I want it now. If it takes me hours to get, I might as well just go to lunch. Right? There's at least the audience that I can hear is laughing. So this level of, I don't know, self-entitlement, right? I think that is really pushing us to try and do new things, to find new ways to satisfy the requests. This is why I think that we're all pushing for cloud, because everybody's trying to fulfill their end user demands, right? The perception is that you should be able to satisfy all requests. I don't know where this picture came from. But really being able to say yes all the time, to be there to enable organizations, to enable your users, to enable your business units, so that you're adding value to the business instead of being seen as a roadblock, right? And I think that this is really why we're trying to do more cloud technology inside of our organizations. Now, the balance is doing cloud for the right applications at the right time and not trying to do something for the wrong reasons. But I'm sure everybody has dealt with a marketing department that is pushing you to do things right now. Oh, you didn't forecast we were going to do a Super Bowl commercial? Like, maybe that was something we probably paid for months ago, but now we have to figure out in a week's time. But that's a common thing that we're doing a lot of content delivery at Rackspace, so we deal with a lot of Super Bowl commercials. We used to deal with a lot of Oprah things, right? There's this lack of communication inside of organizations, and I think that we pick on marketing a lot, but they're just trying to do everything they can as quickly as possible, reacting on real-time results, right? And really pushing to drive the business forward. Because if marketing waits a week longer than your competitors, then maybe you've already missed the boat. If IT is the holdup, then how do we justify the extra investment in IT to enable the business? It's kind of a catch-22. You have to be the enabler first before you can go back and say, I need more money to enable further. But if everybody has this perception that we're the no organization, that we just have to, we may not have a leg to stand on. And so this pressure forces us to think about IT services differently, really being a service provider to the organization, really having the opportunity to try new things, to be a broker, to say, well, no, I can't deliver this in our traditional platform, but, like an answer that says, no, but I can do it this way. Or have you considered X? Or we have already vetted a partner that can do this for you right away. And I'll talk about that a little bit more. But it gives you the opportunity to really have new beginnings. Right? Really, the journey has just begun. This isn't just a cliche slide, but it gives you the opportunity to really renew your IT strategy, your technology footprint that you're working with, and really pick the right platform. Many of you have seen this slide before. I think it's in every Rackspace slide, or every Rackspace slide deck. But virtualization is a technology, cloud computing is a business model, because it's really enabling us to do new things and to think about how we're delivering IT services very differently as really a completely new business function. But we have to think about it as a business model and make sure that we're using it in the right way and not just saying, I want the technology because I need it right now. Right? I want to use the appropriate platform at the right time. Right? The next generation IT department, really, like I talked about this a little bit, but it needs to be fast and nimble and flexible and self-service. The longer I have to wait to go through my TPS reports, the more painful my departments are going to think that I am, and the more they're going to try and avoid me. Right? This is where I think that if we're not these things, if we're not fast and nimble and supportive of our business units, this is how rogue IT starts and gains a ton of momentum. Because people find a way to work around us. They find a way to go out and do things that may not necessarily be in their best interest, may not work properly, and then they're still going to come back and expect that IT can fix it. Right? Just like the odd picture earlier that said they expect IT to fulfill all requests. Whether we help them do it or we don't help them do it, right, they're still going to say IT is the problem. Right? We seem to still have the blame pointed at us. So it's really the shifting in role of IT, right? From being the operators, from running all this legacy infrastructure, which I know that you're never going to get rid of, or it's going to be around for a long, long time, but trying to focus our effort on innovation. Right? There's been several studies where Gartner's talked about we spend 80% of our time keeping the lights on. If we spent more effort on automation of our existing platforms, what if I could shift 10% of that over to innovating? If my innovation just went up 50% for my organization, that has a meaningful impact on the business, on new projects, on new capabilities and new technologies that might further accelerate that. So one way that organizations tend to go out and do new software tends to be SaaS. Right? We see things like Salesforce, very prevalent inside of organizations. Probably most of you, or many of you, are using Salesforce today. But just an opportunity of saying, is this something that I can go out and acquire and use as a service better than I can build and run and maintain it myself? What are the trade-offs? Right? Where can I gain value in this? And doing it in a way that allows me to refocus energy and effort on other platforms. That's why you see SaaS growing so much, because you start to see capabilities that really make sense for the business and really help us drive additional investment in other areas. Right, same thing with big data. Think about how much data we're collecting today. This has been talked about throughout the conference, right? And little data capacity. But we start talking, like, as now we start to measure things in petabytes and exabytes, it was rare for me years ago that a customer would come to me and say, I have to find a solution for petabytes of data. Now it happens weekly because we're collecting data from everything, everywhere. And I'm trying to figure out, and we're all trying to figure out, what do I do with that? How do I make the most intelligent decisions with it? And so you see this huge growth in data. Right? I think one of the stats was that there's 72 hours of video uploaded to YouTube every minute. Just think about that's a consumer-driven video site, but think about the impact that we have on data collection inside of organizations. Maybe you have manufacturing. Maybe you now have low-power Bluetooth sensors out there collecting data so you know how manufacturing is performing, where equipment is at. Right? Maybe you're now collecting social media and collaborating and connecting all that data back with your retail sales. What do I do with that data? Where do I store it? The first step is collecting it. That's where you have this incredible storage problem. But the next is really analytics. What am I going to do with it? Right? Are you starting to use things like Mongo or Cassandra or Hadoop? Are you collecting that data and then doing anything with it? Right? I think there was a post on the Cloud Expo site that said that storage had grown, Big data is growing 50% year over year. Right, this tremendous growth of data, and the second part is really analyzing that data. This is a huge problem for us as organizations. Right now, it's a good problem to have, because now I can make better decisions, faster decisions, based on real data instead of just a hunch or what my focus group is telling me. My sample set is no longer the people I sent a survey to. My sample set is now all. Right, think about that. Think about being able to make smart decisions for my organization based on every consumer that I have, every single one of them. That is now enabling a decision based off of everything, and not just maybe the 100 people that were passionate enough to fill out the survey, or were lucky enough to get the fill out the survey at the end of your Best Buy receipt, as an example. But with this data, means that IT has to be able to do something with it. And if we have a slow-going IT organization that can no longer make a decision and really turn on a dime, then we're still holding ourselves up. We're still stuck in this point of, well, I've made a decision, I have great data, but I can't do anything with it. Either my platforms don't support it, or my data center doesn't support it, or I'm out of capacity, or I'm out of power, or I can't invest. Right? How do we justify ourselves as innovators and enablers for the business? We have to be nimble, we have to be agile. We have to use technologies to get us there. And so I see really this chasm of how IT is supporting these initiatives forming. Or you have IT organizations that say, I want to be a broker, or that say, I want to find providers that help me do this, that partner with me to do this. Or you have the technologists that say, I want to build it. I can build it. Let me do it. And so when we think about the broker, right, vetting new technologies, being the one that's creating relationships with service providers, this is no, I can't support you with what I currently have, but I can help you in this way with these providers that I've already established a relationship with. I've negotiated a contract. I have SLAs in place. I know how they're going to bill me. They know who I am. Right? I already have these established so that I can go out and start to achieve results very quickly. Right? Not recreating the wheel. Not going out there and trying to do this again. Right? But most importantly, making sure that this works and is sustainable for my business. I'm not just picking something because it's the latest buzzword. Right? We should have buzzword bingo at these conferences. You might win based on my presentation. But then we start thinking about the state-of-the-art technologists, right? Thinking about, how do I know what's happening with all of this technology? How do I pick the right technology to invest time and energy and effort in? Once I pick a technology, how long is it going to take me to get proficient? How long is it going to take me to get smart to where I can go out and build something and have a platform running that's really innovating for my organization? Do I invest 6 months in building an OpenStack cloud? Or do I find a partner that helps me build an OpenStack cloud in 2 weeks, and I spend the next 5.5 months innovating for my business or building new applications that are based on that cloud? What's the right investment there? Only you can decide that for your organization. And then what's the right place to do it in? Do I do it for a production app? Do I do it for dev and test? Do I do it for a small pilot and just say, here, development team, let me know if you love this or hate it? You'll probably get feedback pretty quickly. But with all of this, you have to start thinking about, okay, well, what am I going to do and what's my future look like? But I think capacity planning is dead. I think that if any of us try to do capacity planning now, that you might as well just assume you're going to fail. Because technology is changing so quickly that we're not going to get it right. Right? My power density is going to change. The number of compute instances I'm going to need is going to change. My applications are changing. How do I know what I'm going to need in 12 months? And so I think that for me, it's about picking the right direction, making sure I have the right set of technologies, make sure I've made the right bets on what platforms am I going to go down, what applications am I going to build on, where am I going to invest my development time, and use that as my guiding principles for the organization and less about building data centers. There was an article last week about Zynga's $100 million data center they built being underutilized. Is that the right investment? Is building a data center a sign of success today? Is having your own data center really the right move? I think it can be, just like it's part of a broad hybrid cloud strategy. You might have your data center, you might have a service provider, you might use public cloud, and a mix of technologies across all of them. However, you should be really sure you need to buy that data center or build that data center before you need to do it. You should make sure that your capacity really requires it. I was joking with my colleagues that you pretty much should be at the point where you absolutely are certain you need 2 data centers before you build one. Because otherwise, if you build 2 data centers or build 1 data center and don't really need it, then your CFO is going to force you to put everything in there because you need to maximize return on that investment. But that may or may not be possible based on the state of your applications and state on the technology you want to consume. And so you might have just backed yourself into a corner and are no longer able to use the platform that's really most appropriate to help you continue to innovate. You're stuck in that legacy mindset of IT. And so we think about who has led the way in this innovation. Right? We think about the technologies that have really pushed us forward as an industry. Right? I should even put AWS up here, Amazon Web Services, because without these companies pushing us to consume technology in new ways, right, we would never consider some of the out-of-the-box things that we're doing, and we would never really have tried to focus on building a cloud platform. I mean, look at all the work that Google has done. They've truly innovated for our entire industry. Right? We read about what Netflix is doing. We see what Facebook is doing. Right? Nobody talks about MySpace. Right? We look at what eBay and PayPal have done. But we have to think about what's consistent across these organizations. What are they all doing similar that maybe we're not doing, or we're not doing yet, or we just started doing? Right? I think that when I look at these companies, they've been doing innovative things for years. And what I think they all have in common is DevOps. Not DevOps in terms of tools, and they're using neat software, or they've built a DevOps team, or they use DevOps titles. What I mean by DevOps is that they're collaborating. Their development teams, their operations teams, their business teams are all sitting together trying to figure out what's the best way to solve the problem. Their ops teams know how software is written, the software teams know how the infrastructure runs, and they're able to maximize their capabilities across all of those. They're not just saying, I'm going to write this neat software, operations figure out how to run it and keep it up. Like, this level of collaboration, this is really what is driving them forward. And so I am of the opinion that DevOps, from a process, from a culture perspective, is really what's driving organizations to be more innovative with their technology. And so the first step is really to break down this physical wall between your developers and your operations teams. How many of you have development and operations teams in totally different cities or totally different countries? Is anybody going to participate today? So, I mean, I think that that's a challenge because you're not collaborating. I mean, think about the silos that are built there. The developers probably don't even know who the ops guys are. The ops team don't know who the developers are or know what they're trying to do. They have very different priorities. One's trying to ship code. The other's trying to maintain uptime. But they're misaligned to deliver back to the business. So the common first step that I see is really breaking down that physical wall. How we did it at Rackspace is we made developers sit next to operations teams. So that when they had a question, you could just turn your chair to the next cubicle over and say, what were you thinking? How does this work? What are you trying to achieve? What are our goals? Because without that first level of collaboration, you're still in the dark. You have these silos that are built. And you could still be using very different tools and very different process and have different leaders, but at least you're talking. At least you're trying to figure out what somebody's trying to do and how it's supposed to run and how it's going to scale, as opposed to just throwing it over the fence and assuming it's all going to work. Here's my package, deploy. But really the final step of making this DevOps transition is breaking down all of those silos, breaking down all the process that's holding them up. It's automating everything through the stack. Yesterday morning in Lisa's keynote, she showed the video from HubSpot. They're doing 75 releases a day. 75 releases a day, right, to production. Not just the dev environment, all the way to production. That's only possible because of this sort of framework, this process, using tools that that automate the entire workflow from development to QA to pushing to production, right? That's only possible when you have a very, very mature DevOps model and communication and collaboration and tools and systems and process. Or maybe lack of process in some areas, right? Sometimes process is the holdup. But if we think about doing that sort of integration, continuous delivery, continuous integration, it's impossible if you're not communicating, and that's really where you have to tear down the silos and start to get people working at the same level. Everybody working towards one common goal. I want to ship software all the time, and I want my platform to be up. But don't be afraid of failure, right? Don't be so afraid of making these changes that we're afraid that we might break something. You'll break something, right? We're all going to break something along the way. But the sooner we try, the sooner we break, the sooner we learn from our mistakes and build something new. The important thing is to remember that this collaboration is really what drives innovation. The collaboration between development and ops is really what's pushing us to do new, innovative things as an entire unit, as a business, to be able to deliver back to the organization. But even with this collaboration, we're still searching for the mysterious cloud. We think that there is a cloud out there that will solve all our problems, right? The magic pill. Pick the red pill, pick the blue pill. But we still think that we can go about and say, oh, I'm just going to go all in on cloud, and I'll be able to do anything the business asks of me. The Rackspace point of view, my personal point of view, is that that's not true. Right? One size does not fit all. Someday, we will be all on cloud platforms in one way, shape, or form. But we'll use many different cloud platforms. We'll use specialized clouds. We'll use clouds in different geographies. I'll use a cloud under my desk. Right? But it'll be a cloud because it'll be scalable and self-service and automated. But I won't be trying to shoehorn myself into putting everything on one platform. So we have to think about what goes where. Where are we going to put things? Right? Maybe the things that stay inside my data center require proximity. Maybe they're highly customized. Maybe they're areas of high risk for me. I'm not going to advocate you pick up your mainframe and start to do something different with it. If it's not broken, don't fix it. But I think I've been at organizations where CFOs and CIOs have said, I need to move this to the cloud to save money. But the platform works just fine. Well, is moving to cloud really going to save them money? Not if they leave it on all the time. And if they haven't updated their application to take advantage of new technology, then they're probably not going to be able to scale it up and down. So it just comes down to, I'm knocking things over. It just comes down to what is the right fit? What's the right capability? And so Rackspace, we've made this journey. Right? I'm fortunate enough to be around long enough at Rackspace that I've been through this process. Right? We started as managed hosting, dedicated servers. We started doing VMware as virtualization became practical. Right? Remember the time when everybody was using virtualization just for development? But we didn't trust virtualization for production. Right? I think that we're really at that point now where we're crossing that bridge and saying cloud technologies are ready for production. So we started public cloud with an acquisition. Right? We acquired SYS-Host. And then we realized we needed new technology. We needed a whole new way of thinking, a whole new platform to take us to the next level. And that's where we joined together with NASA and founded OpenStack. Right? And now with OpenStack, you have the capability of running on our public cloud, running on a private cloud dedicated at Rackspace, single tenant, or running it on-premise in your data center. This is a transformational journey that all of us have to go through. And it's just a matter of finding the right time and the right place. It's also about using the technologies that are up here to the fullest of their abilities. There's nothing wrong with using VMware. There are many, many great use cases for VMware. But are you using it to its fullest extent? How do I make sure that I'm using what I have to its maximum capabilities and using the new technology where it's most appropriate, where I can scale both up and down, and really start to harness the power of a hybrid cloud solution, right? Mixing them all together in one logical, one physical architecture so that I'm able to use the best of both worlds. I get to pick the best of each platform, the best of each technology for my specific application and portfolio of applications, And I really don't have to deal with any of the downsides of them because I'm putting the right workload at the right place. I don't have to try and shoehorn my database onto public cloud and say, well, I might have an I/O problem there because it's a multi-tenant platform. No, I can leave it on dedicated servers because I'm not going to scale. Most cases, you're not going to scale your database up and down. But I can use public cloud for things like front-end web servers, marketing campaigns, things that I need to deliver on instantly. And then, of course, private cloud, where it also makes sense to have customization for you. Really, the first step is starting to carve up that portfolio. Thinking about what am I going to use where, what am I going to put, am I going to start to use software as a service, what am I going to keep in my data center, what can go to service providers, what applications am I going to get rid of? Right, I think that we tend to have a lot of application sprawl. Many of us may have hundreds of applications that we don't know where they live, don't know where they exist, don't know if they even work anymore. But they're still listed as a part of our application portfolio. So looking at this portfolio and trying to understand what I'm going to do where and when is key to the strategy of the organization moving forward. Right? If you don't necessarily have an understanding of what you're doing, how can you define a strategy that sets the right roadmap? Right, and this is really where it's about finding the right trade-offs, the right balance of technology in a hybrid cloud solution. Right? Where do I need security? Where do I need performance? Where does utility billing make sense? I mentioned earlier that if I leave something online all the time, it may not be the lowest cost solution. We've worked with many of our clients to define that right balance. Right, to look at their performance data, to look at their user sessions and say, here is where the ideal level of physical infrastructure is for you, and here's where the ideal level of cloud infrastructure, things that are variable, that you have this utility level of utility billing. But that is only possible if your application supports it. And so all of the great innovative things we can do with technology on the infrastructure side are only really possible if your app supports it. I was talking with a customer last week that was asking me why we weren't heavily investing in platform as a service. And it's really because we're building a hybrid cloud strategy. Most organizations try to look to platform as a service because they're trying to put an application that's not yet ready for cloud on a cloud platform. And that platform as a service is really what's abstracting all that from them. So they don't have to worry about it. They don't have to think about what it's running on. They don't have to think about how it's going to scale. They don't think how it's going to work. It's just there and to them runs. But is that really the right fit? And maybe it is if they're trying to do something very, very dynamic. But if they understand the characteristics of the application and the application portfolio, how do we mix all these things together? How do we mix the technology so that we have a true hybrid cloud model that's able to deliver? And it's really about finding the best fit. I'll load this out. Thinking about, what am I going to run on-premise? What's going to stay on very specialized hardware? What am I going to keep in my data center? Mainframes, AIX. Right? What am I going to run that might be dedicated servers at a service provider, right? There's still many, many great use cases for that. And what am I going to run on public cloud? And where do I mix private cloud in between? Where do I want that self-service, on-demand flexibility, but I still want it to be my own platform? I still want to have control. Right? I still want to customize it. I want to know where my applications live. I want to know where my data is at. I don't want to share it with anybody else. Where's the right balance? And so this is why our lives as IT professionals is more difficult today, I think, than it's ever been. Because you used to have one option, maybe two. Your option was all the way on the left. It was on-premise data centers. Where am I going to put this? In the data center. Easy answer. Right, the number of options, the number of knobs I had to turn was greatly reduced. And now, the options at your disposal have increased 100-fold. I can now put it on different platforms, in different geographies, on different service providers, with different capabilities, different price structures. Right, and how do you go about making the right decision for that application, for your business units, for your entire IT organization? Finding the right balance and saying, this is really the right platform for me. Picking the right platform is the hardest decision of all, in my opinion. Right, that's what my whole team does is help customers figure out what's that right platform. Right? That's our goal at Rackspace. Lisa shared some of that yesterday. And so when we look at how we apply this, right, I wanted to show you a simple e-commerce reference architecture. This is a reference architecture that one of our customers leveraged during the last holiday season. Right? Databases on traditional physical infrastructure. App servers on dedicated servers or VMware. Running everything that needs to be in scope for PCI compliance over on the left side. Everything that's dedicated there. I know exactly where it's at. I know what my performance characteristics are. I know how it's been configured. I know who has access. And I know when and where it's going to be. But then I take my catalog and put the catalog out on public cloud. Something that's highly scalable. That really doesn't have any sensitive data. It's all public data. It's a catalog. But it's highly elastic. It gives me the flexibility that I need when I have unknown volumes of traffic. This had a direct business benefit to them, this architecture alone, for how IT could deliver back to their marketing department. Because what could happen at that point was that the marketing department was then able to do flash promotions, flash sales, flash marketing campaigns and say, for the next hour, you can go get this product because we have an excess product, excess available in our warehouse. Or this is what's selling great in the retailers. I'm going to go advertise that heavily on our e-commerce platform. But they were able to do all of that without telling IT anything. Because IT set them up for success from the beginning. They said it's going to scale for you, it's going to grow with you, it's going to be able to handle whatever you throw at it at any time of the day. And so they could say, I'm going to go target the central time zone. I'm going to send everybody in our catalog an email that is in central time zone and say, come to the website for the next half hour, you can buy this product for half off, or free shipping, or whatever it might be. And they were able to do all of that and have wild success. The best year e-commerce, the best year in retail. It was revolutionary for them. And now their marketing department is really in love with it because they feel like they have no limitations. They're able to do whatever it is they want to do, whenever they want to do it, without having to go to IT and say, well, I need another server, we're worried about performance, the website went down because we've sent too many people to it. There's no longer any of those concerns. And so it's not just about picking what application is going to go on what platform. It's about picking what component of the application, what workload within that application is going to go on a platform. And so when I talk about our lives getting 100 times more complicated, right, it's 100 times more complicated per application. And then how do you tie these things together as part of your overall portfolio? Where am I mixing together and leveraging things like maybe the right solution is EMC or NetApp storage on the back end? How do I make sure that I'm picking the right platform for my portfolio and using the right one? Maybe it's both. Right? Maybe it's both. But it's no longer handcuffing yourself and making a decision and saying, this is where I'm going to go and this is what I want to do. And so a common maturity model that we use at Rackspace is this transformation for our customers, right? Going from starting with test dev, easy applications, going to web-enabled applications, things that make a lot of sense to move to cloud, right? Standardized applications, things like SharePoint, and then starting to rewrite or modernize my legacy or mission-critical applications. But you see across the top there, really how the organization has to shift from being pragmatic to being innovative. Going from being the broker, right, IT as a service, being the person saying yes, being the person that's enabling the organization to this DevOps model, which is not something that happens overnight. When Rackspace made this shift to an entire DevOps development organization, we essentially stalled development for months while we went through and retooled, reorganized, and re-platformed all of our developers. It was a painful transition, but we knew that years ago when we made that transition that we had to make the investment then or we would never be able to capitalize on it today. Right, and then rethinking ROI. Where am I making the trade-offs? Where can my business partners help me weigh the pros and cons of speed to market versus flexibility? How sure are they of a certain platform? Is this something that I should invest heavily in? Is it something that I should buy equipment for the long run, or is it something we should just test out? And then, of course, getting leadership buy-off. Right, we joke that C-level transformation kind of comes towards the end. But what happens is you get grassroots efforts throughout all of this. When the development teams feel like they're empowered and they can do things self-service and do it on demand and do it right away, then they just start doing it. It snowballs inside the organization. It becomes something they can't live without and they want to do more of. Within our development teams, that's how these tools have come to be. That's how we've picked Puppet and Chef and Jenkins and Hudson. Right? That's how we've picked a lot of these tools because the developers love them. It made their lives easier. It made them want to do more work, want to make more integration, and really ultimately have a better outcome for everybody. So we look at this transformation and how we approach it with customers, how my team approaches it with customers. We start with a strategy workshop, an IT evolution workshop. Not trying to plan where we want to be in 5 years, but trying to plan where we want to be, what's realistic for us in 12, 18, 24 months. Right? Looking at your application portfolio, doing application profiling workshops, trying to understand what's there, what exists. Where is the low-hanging fruit? How do we categorize applications and things that make sense for us to put on one platform or another? And then picking that low-hanging fruit and saying, is this a good fit for cloud? Should we do a cloud readiness assessment? Should we dive in deep and understand the dependencies and your performance characteristics? And who uses these applications? What do they talk to? And then going into design and proof of concept and architecture, right? And ultimately implementation and migration services. But the one thing to keep in mind about this is that technology in our portfolio and the industry is evolving so quickly that for many of your clients that I work with, we start this cycle over every quarter, every 6 months. Because think about where we are today. We are far ahead of where we were 6 months ago. And think about where we're going to be in the next 6 months. Think about all the technology advancements that are coming with software-defined networking, software-defined storage, right? Public cloud technologies. Ultimately, the way I see hybrid cloud is that as public cloud technology evolves, we'll be able to put more and more on a public cloud platform. But until it evolves, it's about picking the right platform at the right time and really having a transformation strategy so that when the platforms are available, you have the knowledge and the understanding of how you might want to shift that and where it might want to go. And so some of the common tools that we use to stay smart on cloud technologies, right? You see all the big analysts there. I'm a big fan of IDC and Gartner and Forrester and GigaOM. GigaOM's a great place to be, but also Rackspace tools. Right? Cloud University, our forums, our community, our DevOps blogs, our LinkedIn groups. Right? Really just being connected, talking with people that are making you challenge the way that you're thinking about things. If you're not being challenged on a particular platform or decision, then maybe you're being too safe. Maybe you haven't thought it through. Right? We want to. In all of our strategy discussions, we want to have a dialogue, a discussion. We want to challenge the decisions. I joke that my job is to go in and be disruptive and then leave. It's pretty fun. Because we want to challenge the historic mindset and the way we've been doing things. Right? New thoughts, new ideas are good. It may not be the idea that you have to pick, but at least you've considered it and you know you've weighed all options. And so with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you have. Thank you very much. But
go on.
No, I'm just here.
Thank you. Brian Jawalka, Enterprise Solutions Architect at Rackspace, and now we know why. What a thoughtful presentation. As you say, we're up against lunch if you're a full conference pass holder. That's in the corner, but there's plenty of people still. So let us put it open to questions, starting over there.
So, one of your slides where you compare all the options in terms of security, price, flexibility, and everything. And I've been seeing this from many vendors where they put on the cost side is 5 cost stacks on the on-premise and the 1 cost stack in the full cloud solution. Are there good studies on this area? Because I'm a little skeptical. I know there are good space for cost savings, but the 5-to-1 seems to me a little too much.
It comes down to the workload, right? So I would say if you use cloud to its full extent, meaning it scales on demand with you dynamically and scales back down, then you will absolutely have the ability to save a tremendous amount of money. If you are not using cloud to those sort of capabilities, then in the long run, cloud will actually cost you more, like 10x. Not 10x, but it will cost you a lot more. Because to some degree, cloud technology has a premium for flexibility built in, right? There has to be.
Yeah, but are there good independent studies like Gartner and things like this that talk about business cases where you compare cost before, cost after?
So we have built those tools as part of our advisory services practice that we can show you and plug in the financial models and say this is your cost for each, this is how your performance is on each. I don't think it's necessarily a great one-to-one comparison, a broad study, because your application performance on public cloud might be very different than it is on dedicated or VMware. But I'm not aware of any specific studies, but our team can help walk you through that.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
Any more for any more? You can see that.
There's a couple down
over there.
That way.
Thank you. I was wondering, you mentioned about the different platforms that are available according to the needs of the client, and how would you go about selecting the platform according to what? Is that, I don't know if it is an appropriate question, if you don't know.
That's a broad question.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
So I would say in terms of platform, so at Rackspace, platforms that are available range widely, right? We have traditional managed hosting platforms, like on the storage side, NetApp, EMC, Dell. Servers tend to be Dell, either dedicated or we can put VMware on top of it. And then, of course, our entire public cloud portfolio. The choice of platform comes down to the dialogue and discussion and collaboration that we have to help your teams understand what's the right fit for different parts of your application. Right? Some things are pretty clear. Right? If you have a high-performance database, then let's make sure that we're sizing it appropriately and putting it on the right platform. But if I have an application that might be somewhat scalable, or parts of it might have a base level of consumption and then a part that you burst into, that would be maybe a mix of platforms and coming down to just having the dialogue and saying, okay, well, here's how we would envision it being deployed across our entire portfolio. Can your applications support that? Do your teams understand how those things work together? But I'm happy to chat with you afterwards if you have any specific questions.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. I'll retrieve it momentarily. Shall we thank Brian Jawalka, as I say, for a thoughtful presentation. Thank you so much, Brian. We have a panel coming